The important part and center of today's meal on Nathalie Dupree Cooks for Family and Friends is a hearty cassoulet. It looks daunting at first, but I'll show you how to change it into a pussycat. This is really for two special people. Ray made the recipe, and Ray's worked for me for several years now, and I dedicated my book to him, Nathalie Dupree Cooks for Family and Friends. And the other person is from my foster daughter, Audrey, who used to always eat the cassoulet that I made when I was at Rich's cooking school. When she moved to France one time, she and her sister would call it stuffing. And so when she moved to France much later with her French husband, she called me one time and she said, Nathalie, she said, I had something in a restaurant called cassoulet. And she said, isn't that what we used to call stuffing? And it was indeed what we had taught all the time at the Rich's cooking school when I taught there years ago. So this is for the two of them, and it's Ray's adaptation of this classic. Now, these are some dry white beans, which are an integral part of this cassoulet, and you really have to pick them over. Look at these weird things that we found in the beans. We found stone, a rock, and all this, and they were actually in the pack of beans that we got from the grocery store. So pick over your beans very, very well. And then you rinse them and put them in a pot with water to cover. Now, if you have about 10 cups to 3 pounds approximately, well, this is just 2 pounds of beans, but if you have a ratio of 3 to 1, I should say, it'll reduce flatulence. So you can use more if you want to and then tip off some of it. It'll make it all easier. But in this case, we're just doing water to cover, boiling it 5 minutes, and then you set it aside an hour. And that is just a really easy way of getting the beans ready. Then you drain them and you return them to the pot, and this is the way that they look right here. Now, you blanch a pound of salt pork about 15 minutes to remove the excess salt. You can put just about anything in the cassoulet. I'm going to dice this salt pork. You can put just about anything in cassoulet if you want to. In fact, there are 3 famous kinds, and one group of people says that you never put lamb in a cassoulet, and one says it should always be sausage, and they have big to-dos about this in France now. So you can put anything you want to in it, but you do want about a third of it to be some kind of pork probably, or some kind of nice, rich, fatty meat. And it's okay because the beans are there to absorb all that, so don't worry about that so much. So you cut your pork into 1-inch dice. Put a little olive oil in a skillet and fry your pork till it's nice and crisp and brown, about 15 minutes, And then while it's frying, slice and cook 2 onions and chop 6 large garlic cloves. Now you take your pork out with a slotted spoon and you drain it on a paper towel, and you add it to the onion and the garlic. You cook your onion and garlic till they're translucent, and then you mix all of this together, your beans, your pork, and your onions. Now, this recipe calls for onions and onions and garlic in several different places, and it's really silly to cook the onions and garlic at this point and not at another. I just cook all my onions and garlic all together, a giant portion of them, and then divide them up according to the stages. You do want them to flavor different parts of the meal. And the onions that are cooking all this long time with the beans will have lost their flavor, so you're grateful that you're adding some later with your lamb. But just cook all of it at one time. Then you add chicken broth to cover, about 8 cups. And you can skim a little of it if you want to. I'm not going to try to get all of that in there because I may need it later. So you just add chicken broth to cover, about 8 cups, and you add salt and pepper to taste, because whatever you can do to make this taste good, the better, and of course you want it to have enough salt. Then I have some parsley stalks and thyme stalks and crumpled bay leaves. They tell me I have exactly 15 parsley stalks. People have been working all day at trying to be sure we have every little thing on here to show you. Bring the whole thing to a boil and then simmer it just partially covered. I'm going to get a lid and keep the lid partially covered, and you do it till it's tender, about 1 to 1.5 to 2 hours. Now you can do that ahead of time and you refrigerate it till needed. In fact, if you don't have time to do everything, that's really kind of a simple step. You could do this one day and do the rest another day. Either that or you can sort of dedicate a whole Saturday. But lots of times I make this during the week. It feeds 20 people, and so ultimately it's very cheap. So if you're having a dinner party, you will find that it's really a very economical thing to do for 20 people and you're taking 2 or 3 days to do it in stages. And all of it can be made ahead and then combined at the last minute. I mean, not the last minute, combined the last day, as you'll see. Now, here's a duck, and you want to cut a 4 to 5 pound duck. I'm just cutting right down the breastbone there, doing it the hard way. I could take everything out first, take out all those parts, and just throw them into your stock pot except for your liver, which you want to get rid of in another way. So then you just go ahead and cut this into 8 pieces. It's much easier if you can see what you're doing, and this is, of course, fighting me because it's been out at room temperature for a while. It's always easier to cut a fowl. I just want to see where I am. All it is, that was almost my diamond again. It's always easier to see what you're doing, and so I just cut the back of the flesh, and there it is. I just needed to figure out where to cut it. It was a simple matter. And then turn it over. You notice I'm working on a plastic board. Snap everything so you can see where you are, and then I'm going to cut this into more pieces. You want it into 8 as smaller pieces as you can, setting aside your parts, and just cut. You can see how easy it is to cut once you get started. So I'm not going to fool with doing that whole thing for you. It doesn't matter what way you cut it, so it's not any particular 8 pieces. It's a good chance for you to figure out how a duck really is built, so that the next time you run into a duck in the dark, you'll know exactly how to cut it into pieces. Now, put your backbone and your gizzard and your heart in a pan, and any pieces of the wing or anything that you didn't want to put in there, and you're going to make some stock from it. Now, mix 2 to 3 tablespoons of kosher salt, a tablespoon of freshly ground black pepper, 1 to 2 tablespoons of allspice, and a teaspoon of thyme, and you rub it all over your duck pieces and put it in a plastic bag, which I just happen to have here. Refrigerate it, maybe up to a couple of days, at least several hours if you can, so that it gets a great flavor. Then you preheat your oven to 400 degrees. You pat dry your duck, and you put them in the roasting pan, which is where they are. You run them in the roast them in that 400 degree oven for about an hour, and then set it aside to cool. So that's in the oven. Now, save all of the duck fat. This traditionally is made with goose, but we didn't think that you would want to make the investment of the goose, and the duck does very well with it, but you use this duck fat to drizzle on the top. It sort of melts in. The duck is really, I think, special part of it, although you could use just all sausage. You wouldn't have to have all this variety of meat, because everybody does. That's one of those wars in France again, what ingredients you want. But you do want enough fats to keep this really moist and juicy. And people love this. When I have parties, they head for this, even though it's kind of ugly. Now, when it's cool enough to handle, you take the meat off the bones and you pour off the fat, and I'll show you that. And then you just set the meat aside till you need it. To make your duck stock, which is over here on the back of the stove, you just heat the duck fat, you brown the backbone and the gizzard and the heart, which are here, and then you remove them and you chop them into small pieces, and you put them into a separate pot with water, and you bring it to the boil, and cover it, simmered, partly covered, a couple hours, and then you strain it, and then here's what this is. Now, here is some lamb that I want to tell you about. In some hot duck fat, you brown a 2-pound lamb shoulder with the bones, and here is the lamb shoulder, built just like you are, and cut into pieces. Now, you wouldn't have to use lamb shoulder if you couldn't find any. You could use a leg of lamb very easily, or you could go to the store and buy pieces. But if you can get the shoulder, that would be good, because it'll add just a little more texture and flavor to it. Then you brown a 2-pound pork shoulder or Boston butt. And so you could do all of that in a great big giant frying pan. And then meanwhile, you slice 3 onions and 5 garlic cloves and cook them until they're golden. But as I said, you might as well cook all your onions and garlic at the same time. I mean, it doesn't matter which one is which. And then you add 28-ounce can of tomatoes, and some beef stock to cover. Probably be 2 cups or more. And you're going to combine all of these things. So let me just show you all of this in here, because this is all going to simmer away, and it's going to be delicious. I cannot tell you how wonderful this is, because when you take everything off the bone, it all just melts in together. And then you add salt and pepper to taste, and a little thyme here, about a teaspoon of thyme. And you've got your lamb and your pork already in there, and a crumpled bay leaf maybe. And you simmer it covered until the meat is tender, and it just falls off the bone. It takes about 2 hours. And just add extra stock as you need it. Just keep cooking it to keep it moist. And then you remove the solids and boil down your liquid by half, and this is the way that it looks there. Looks delicious, doesn't it? Pretty good. It's a delicious sauce all in itself. Now, here I have my duck meat from the bones, and I've got my pork and my lamb from the bones, and I have 2 pounds Italian sweet sausage. So all of this, and that was fried ahead and cut in little cubes and fried ahead. And all of that can be done ahead and refrigerated until you need it. Heat your oven to 400 degrees. That's when you are ready. Now, all of that's in the refrigerator, so the day that you want to cook this and assemble this, and by the way, the whole thing freezes too. So not only do all the parts freeze, but the whole thing freezes. So you preheat your oven to 400 degrees, and you mix 5 cups of breadcrumbs, a cup of parsley, and a 1/4 cup of thyme, and I really do like the fresh. You just combine all of that, and that is this wonderful topping that you're going to have. Now, you ladle about 1/3 of the beans into a casserole with a slotted spoon, and you layer about half of the meat in there, and then you repeat with more beans and then more meat, like I'm doing here. Oop, that's a bone. You don't want a bone in there. Oop. Yep. Just be sure you get it all off the bones. And then you add more beans. I just happen to have more beans here. And whenever you see something like those parsley stalks and so forth, just pull them out. They're supposed to be out. If you were really clever, you might tie them together. But frankly, by the time you stir them, they break apart anyway. Sounds good to tie them together in a bouquet garni. It sounds very sophisticated, but it really doesn't always work. Now, you've got the beans there. You pour in whatever bean liquids you've got left, and your duck stock to partly cover. I've kind of combined them here. And then you put 2 cups of the breadcrumb mixture on the top. You probably want to know where this comes from. It's a delicious thing. The name cassoulet comes from the pan that was used originally, an earthenware pan that was originally used to cook it in. And I think it's the forerunner of the word casserole myself. I think that's how we got into casserole, meaning sort of something where you have a lot of things. Now, you can use all leftovers in this if you want to. I mean, you wouldn't have to do all these special things if you want to. Just make something that tastes good. Now, you drizzle it with your duck fat, which I have over there, and refrigerate it until you need it. Bring it back, bake it uncovered 20 to 30 minutes, and turn the heat down to 300. Now, take and press your crumb crust into the beans. And this is important. Some people do it up to 7 times. This gets these buttery, lovely crumb crusts right into it. So you push that in, you drizzle it with more fat, you cook it another, and have more crumbs here, and then you drizzle it with more fat, you cook it another hour, an hour and a half, and you put the crust into the beans. As many times as you have patience to do that, the better it gets. But add more stock if you need to, because you want to keep it moist and you want everything to melt together. It is absolutely delicious. So please make it. You will love it. And here is something else I think you'll really want to learn about. 195 million bushels of apples, red, green, or gold, sweet or tart, ripe and delicious, are harvested each year in the United States, making us the leading Western producer. Red Delicious are America's favorite apple, grown from Georgia and the Carolinas to the colder climates of Michigan and Pennsylvania. Washington State and Virginia are also major apple producers. Golden Delicious are second among about 20 top varieties. There's no telling exactly how many varieties of apples there are. That's because every time an apple seed is planted, it may produce a new variety. You get the kind of apples you want not by planting seeds, but by grafting cuttings to root stock. It's usually 6 or 7 years before it bears mature fruit. But apple trees have been known to be productive for 60 years or more. Commercial orchards usually start phasing them out after 25 years. The apple grower's season starts early before winter is really over. First the trees are pruned, then before they bloom, insect and weed killers are sprayed. The Barber Orchard, here in the mountains of North Carolina, has over 400 acres of apple trees, and each spring brings in 200 hives of bees to pollinate the beautiful white blossoms. The apples ripen in the late summer, and the harvest, depending on the climate, continues into early November. McIntosh apples are among the first to ripen, Granny Smith among the last. The apple that goes into your apple cider or applesauce may have fallen from the tree, but the ones you buy at the supermarket were probably picked by hand. They're placed into cold storage right away to slow the ripening process and to keep them firm and crisp. Before they leave for the market, the apples are graded and packed the same way they're picked, by hand.
For nearly a century, LeCreuset's colorful French cookware has been a favorite in kitchens around the world. From its bold finishes and uncompromised quality to its easy-to-clean materials, the brand's range of iconic products are as easy to use as they are to love.
You know, it was very hard for me when I was writing my book to decide where to put that cassoulet, because the book is divided up into between family meals and Simply Smart, which is entertaining meals, simple entertaining meals, and putting on the Ritz, the more difficult things that we're doing. And some people thought that cassoulet should go into more difficult because it's got so many steps, but really it's easy. Every step is easy. So I put it in Simply Smart, and I hope you'll agree with me that it's a wonderful, smart thing to serve when you have a large crowd coming. First thing I'm going to do is to combine 2 cups of cranberries, and these are fresh cranberries that I bought in the grocery store last year in froze, so that when the first apples came out, I would have some that I could use. So combine 2 cups of cranberries and a half a cup of sugar, a half a cup of orange juice, and a half a cup of water, and the grated peel of 1 orange. And I'm just going to show you how to do that with my magic zester there. And a pinch of freshly grated nutmeg, but let me show you how to do that too. Here is fresh nutmeg and a grater, and you just grate it in there, and it makes all the difference in the world. What you get fresh, it just smells wonderful, is much better than freshly grated than what you buy already pre-grated. Now let me show you how to zest this little orange very quickly. This is the zest or the rind, whatever you want to call it both things, and you just take this gadget, this wonderful gadget, and run it across like that. And then I have an apple corer. I might as well do all of this at one time. Put your corer into your apple. Somebody's already been there. Push it through. Get rid of your core. And then there's a nice peeler here as well. Now let me just tell you a little bit more about cooking these cranberries. You want to cook them over low heat to reduce them by a third, and they pop open and they're wonderful, and then you cool them. And this is the way they look when they're done. Now let me make the crust for you, because while that's cooking, you can be making your pie crust and chilling it. Put 2½ cups of flour and 3/4 teaspoon of salt in a food processor. That looks like a little bit much for me, so just dump that in there. Or you can do it by hand, and then cut in a ½ cup of vegetable shortening. And I just like doing it in the food processor because it's fast and easy. I'm using a soft winter wheat flour, but if you want to use a cake flour, you certainly can, or a mixture of cake flour and all-purpose flour if you live in the north or in the west and can't get southern flour. And then you cut in a ½ cup of vegetable shortening, and then 8 to 10 tablespoons of water. Let's see, I don't know how much I had in there when I started, but I had about a cup. You want that water to be cold so it will chill the gluten, retard the development of the gluten. So I'll just start that and see how it goes. Don't let it come to a ball in the food processor. That's the mistake that many people make. I think that's about right. But I can always add more flour because I have a gracious plenty of shortening in there, and that will compensate for adding more flour. So whir it around. Oop, did that too long. Well, you'll be perfect. Don't let yours come to a ball like that. And here's this. And then I have a flour shaker right here, and I'm going to go ahead and start rolling this out. Now the trick with this is to get your pastry rolled out about 6 inches larger than your pie plate. You want to roll it out 18 inches. And I'm probably not going to have the full 18 inches here, but I want you to see it as best as I can. You start in the center, roll backwards, and then you roll forwards. Turn it forward and backwards. You just keep starting from the center. And you use a flour shaker because you want to add more flour instead of have it sifted and on there. Don't worry if you stick your fingernail through like I did. Actually, I had just felt a piece of ice there where it's starting to separate, but we'll catch that later. And just keep turning, and it turns out it's a lovely, easy dough. It's cool in here today, although the lights of the cameras are never really cool. There we go. That's that piece of ice. It's just wanting to separate there, see? Let's take it out. There we go. Patch around it. That'll make it a lot easier than fooling with that ice over and over again. Okay? Move it more until you get it to 18 inches. That guy is just going to keep fighting me. Funny. I guess I could put a little flour underneath it too. But now you see why you keep moving it, because imagine if you had the whole thing rolled out and then had to keep fighting one place where it tore. I'm going to put some flour on the back side of this dough and see if I can't catch it that way. I always figure whatever happens to me happens to you. So you just keep rolling this out until you get it to be 18 inches. And then move it to your pie pan. Fold it over like this to move it, and then move it to your pie pan and unwrap it. And then if you still have that hole there, you just go back, brush it with a little water, and go back, and it'll be just fine. Doesn't matter if this pie crust breaks up very much. Just brush a little water there and push it together, and a little water here and push it together. I've done a lot of rescues of pie crusts on TV, and there's nothing wrong with this one that a little water wouldn't do, but I don't want to fool with it. I've got another one that's all ready, and I want to show you the filling that's more important. The reason that you're rolling it out a little bit more is into an 18-inch round is, and I've got it all in here and in my pie plate. So now I need to figure out what to do with this. Here are my apples, and I've got them already. I've peeled and cored my apple, and I just want to slice it. About 6 to 8 Granny Smith apples, and then you toss them with a third of a cup of sugar, a third of a cup of flour, a cup of sugar, and 2 teaspoons of cinnamon, and that half a teaspoon of nutmeg, freshly grated again, and a pinch of salt. Preheat your oven to 375 degrees. Now that you've got your dough and you're nice round here, you pour in your cranberry base. You top it with your apples. Oh, how nice. And then dot it with a fourth of a cup of unsalted butter. It's just delicious. Now, this is the trick I wanted you to see. You fold up your crust like this. So then that means that you don't have to fool with doing a second crust. You just kind of pleat it as you fold it up. Isn't that a great trick? See? There we go. Don't worry if you tear it, see, because you can just go back and make a little design or put another little piece over it. Isn't that great? It's a brilliant idea. Came from a viewer that sent me a letter, and then you just brush it. And the bottom half of her recipe was gone, so I hope this is what she had intended, and I don't know what her name was. You brush milk on the dough, any kind of a glaze will do, and sprinkle it with a couple of tablespoons of sugar. That'll just brown it up nicely and really go well with it. Bake it on a cookie sheet for 50 to 60 minutes, and that's it, and it's a wonderful, wonderful pie. for this crowd that you're having, you probably need to make 2 or 3 pies. Now, for Will's 3 lettuce salad, this is handy to make in advance. Use a mixture of greens like romaine and radicchio and Belgium endive. And then wash your greens and tear them into bite-sized pieces. And I keep them in the refrigerator for several days in a plastic bag with a paper towel. And also, this is a salad dryer. I want to show you how to dry it. I dry them before I refrigerate them in there with a paper towel. Whoop, it goes everywhere. And then when you're ready to use it, you just pull out what you need, so it's done. And I'm going to slice 2 or 3 green onions, or as many as you'd like. Here we go. For a top garnish, chop the green and white parts. Chop a half a cup of a basil and toss them with the greens. Get all of my greens in there. I don't know why things like that don't work when I want them to. Now, whisk together 2 teaspoons of Dijon mustard and 1/4 of a cup of red wine vinegar and a half a cup of olive oil, and taste it. And if it's still too oily, add a little sugar. That takes up the excess oil. Add a little salt and add pepper to taste. Just toss the whole thing, and it's really, really nice. Now I want to go back very quickly and show you my gorgeous pie, which is done. I think you're going to love it. And you cover up, as I said, any little holes or gaps with another piece of pie dough, or even, let me see if I can turn this around to the camera, or even with maybe a little leaf or something like that. And it'll look like you meant for it to be that way. I love this trick, and it's so much easier for people, seems to be, than making a second pie crust, popping it. And now let me show you the whole menu. I made a mistake. You want 1 cup of vegetable shortening in that pie crust. That's 1 cup with the 2½ cups of flour. What I have here is a wonderful kitchen kind of a meal, or a buffet meal, raised cassoulet chock full of delicious meat, poultry, and vegetables, and you can make it ahead, freeze it, reheat it. Don't make it all in one day. And then I have a wonderful salad, Will's salad, and a lovely apple pie.